Who's under the helmet?
A new recruit, Private Jackson, ready for drill instruction.
I'll take over from here.
Yes, sir!
It was the fall of 1978, and NBC needed something that worked. What they got was a small boy from Harlem with a kidney condition, a catchphrase nobody could forget, and a show that somehow became one of the defining sitcoms of its era. It ran for 8 seasons, launched a spin-off that lasted 9, and eventually collapsed under the weight of everything that happened to the people in it. This is the story of how Diff'rent Strokes, 1978, the 70s sitcom sensation, fell apart. Part 1, Where It Started. The show began not with a network pitch, but with a child.
You know, Arnold, you've got real self-control, and I'm proud of you, little brother.
Gary Wayne Coleman was born on February 8, 1968, in Zion, Illinois. He was adopted as an infant by W.G. Coleman, a pharmaceutical company representative, and Edmonia Sue Coleman, a nurse practitioner. Within the first year of his life, doctors identified a serious congenital kidney defect, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, a degenerative condition that caused irreversible internal scarring. The disease required dialysis, multiple surgeries, and eventually 2 kidney transplants, the first when Coleman was 5 years old. It also permanently stunted his growth, leaving him at 4 feet 8 inches as an adult. What the condition didn't touch was his personality.
Proudest punch, which incidentally is very bad for you.
It wasn't too hard.
Around the age of 9, Coleman was discovered by a talent scout connected to Norman Lear's production company, who spotted him in television commercials. Lear, the producer behind some of the most significant sitcoms of the 1970s, All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Good Times, Maude, saw something in the boy immediately. Coleman began appearing in guest roles on NBC productions, including The Jeffersons and Good Times, and the audience response was instant and enthusiastic. Fred Silverman, then president of ABC Entertainment, saw Coleman on television and told Lear he wanted a show built around the child. Lear and his partner Bud Yorkin began developing a concept initially titled 45 Minutes from Harlem. The premise placed 2 African-American boys from Harlem into the household of a wealthy white Manhattan businessman.
Okay, Willis, you be the navigator and I'll be the bombardier.
Whose late housekeeper had been their mother. The show was about class, about race, about 2 worlds colliding in a Park Avenue apartment, all served through the warm and comedic lens that Lear had mastered. By the time the concept was fully developed, Silverman had moved from ABC to NBC, a network that was, by 1978, in serious trouble. NBC had dropped to 3rd place in the ratings, trailing both CBS and ABC. Silverman, hired to revive the network, leaned immediately on projects he already believed in. Diff'rent Strokes was one of them. The title was changed and the show was placed on the NBC schedule for the fall of 1978.
I thought I told you not to dribble that ball in the hallway.
I'm not dribbling it, I'm holding it, pea-brain.
Todd Bridges was cast as Willis Jackson, the older brother, a 13-year-old who had already appeared in Barney Miller, The Waltons, Little House on the Prairie, Roots, and Fish. He was one of the first African-American child actors to have recurring roles on primetime network television, a distinction that said something both about his talent and about how few opportunities had previously existed. Dana Plato was cast as Kimberly Drummond, the white teenage daughter of the household. Conrad Bain, a veteran character actor who had spent years on Maude playing the conservative neighbor, Arthur Harmon, took the role of Philip Drummond, the wealthy widower who becomes the boy's adoptive father. Charlotte Ray completed the primary cast as Edna Garrett, the Drummond family housekeeper.
Water bomb! Aw, this ain't no bomb, Mrs. Garrett.
The show premiered on NBC on November the 3rd, 1978, as a mid-season replacement for the Waverly Wonders, a failed Joe Namath vehicle that had only lasted a few weeks. Despite being positioned as a mid-season entry without the promotional buildup of a fall premiere, Diff'rent Strokes debuted to a Nielsen ranking of 27th, strong enough to prompt an immediate full-season order. By its second season, it was a genuine hit, climbing into the top 20 and giving NBC one of the few reliable successes the struggling network had. The theme song, It Takes Diff'rent Strokes, was written by Alan Thicke, Al Burton, and Gloria Loring, and performed by Alan Thicke. Thicke, then better known as a songwriter and later as the star of Growing Pains, would contribute the show's musical identity for most of its run.
Well, well, well. And how is our little patient this afternoon?
The opening sequence, which showed the boys' journey from Harlem to Park Avenue, was designed to set up the show's cultural collision in visual terms before a single word of dialogue was spoken. Part 2, the show at its best. The engine of the show was Gary Coleman. It is difficult to overstate the hold Coleman had on American television audiences in the late 1970s and early 1980s. He was 10 years old when the show began, but his condition meant he appeared younger, and his face, with its large dark eyes and round cheeks, had a quality that stopped people mid-channel. His comic timing was not something taught. He arrived with it. The ability to pause, pivot, and deliver a line with maximum impact.
Hi, gang.
Hi, Daddy. Did you have a good workout?
Great. Since I started hitting those weights, I'm really encouraged.
Skills that adult actors spend careers developing came naturally to a child who had been performing since he was 9. At the height of the show's popularity, Coleman was earning $70,000 per episode. He was one of the highest-paid child performers in television history. The show's central catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis?" began as a simple line of dialogue delivered when Arnold wanted clarification from his older brother. It spread the way catchphrases do when they are genuinely earned, because Coleman delivered it differently every time, with exactly the right degree of skepticism for each specific situation. By the third season, it was inescapable. Game shows referenced it. Carson used it.
Oh, hi, Willis.
Oh, hi, Pearl. Mind if I study in here while you're making dinner?
Not at all.
Kids said it in school hallways across the country. It was as culturally ubiquitous as any 5-word phrase in American television history. Todd Bridges brought a different register to the show. Willis was protective, wary, and slower to trust the new world he'd landed in. Where Arnold adapted with cheerful speed, Willis carried the adjustment harder and longer. Bridges played the skepticism and the loyalty with equal conviction, and the dynamic between the two brothers, one bouncing off the walls, one anchoring them, gave the show an emotional ballast that the comedy alone couldn't have provided. Conrad Bain's Philip Drummond was the show's moral center in a way that could have been saccharine, but wasn't. Bain brought a genuine warmth and a light touch of self-deprecating comedy to the role that prevented Drummond from becoming a saint.
Just remember to be patient and very understanding.
Hey, why don't you help me, Kimberly?
I wouldn't go near that slime ball.
He was clearly a good man doing his best in a situation that confused him regularly, which made him recognizable and affectionate rather than simply admirable. He was the only cast member to appear in all 189 episodes of the series. In its first 3 seasons, the show climbed steadily into the Nielsen Top 20 and stayed there. It dealt with race directly from the beginning. The collision of cultures between the Harlem Boys and the Park Avenue household was the show's premise, not a background detail. But it handled those dynamics with enough humor and humanity that it didn't lecture. The show also benefited from scheduling. NBC placed it on Friday nights, then moved it to different slots as needed, and used its audience as a launching pad for other productions.
Listen, kid, you can't make an early movie.
Have you forgotten you're going to come and start working in my office tomorrow after school?
The network ran Hello, Larry, a sitcom starring McLean Stevenson, immediately after Diff'rent Strokes on the schedule in 1979. And while Hello, Larry failed, the experiment demonstrated how much trust NBC was placing in the Drummond household to carry an evening. The most significant launch that Diff'rent Strokes enabled was The Facts of Life, which spun directly out of a season 1 episode called The Girls' School. In that episode, Charlotte Ray's Mrs. Garrett helps Kimberly at an all-girls boarding school and finds herself drawn into the students' world. The backdoor pilot worked. The Facts of Life launched on NBC in August 1979 with Charlotte Ray as its lead, and it ran for 9 seasons.
I'm not in the class. Anyway, you're not gonna get me in that long underwear. It doesn't even have a flap in the back.
Making it one of the longest-running sitcoms of the decade. Ray appeared in most of seasons 1 and 2 of Diff'rent Strokes before transitioning fully to her own show, where a new housekeeper, Nedra Volz, as Adelaide Brubaker, took over the Drummond household in Season 3. Part 3, the very special episode and what it signaled. By Season 4 and 5, the show had developed what became one of its most discussed characteristics: the very special episode. American network sitcoms had always incorporated serious themes occasionally, but Diff'rent Strokes pushed into territory that most family comedies avoided. Over the course of its run, the show addressed racial prejudice, bullying, drug abuse, sexual harassment.
You're a spaceman with a jet backpack. Now see, you have to blow all the mutants and asteroids out of the galaxy.
Eating disorders, and, most memorably, child sexual abuse. The episode that most defined this approach, and that remains the most discussed single piece of television the show ever produced, was The Bicycle Man, a 2-part episode written by Blake Hunter and directed by Garen Keith, that aired on February 5th and 12th, 1983. In it, Arnold and his friend Dudley befriend the seemingly generous owner of a neighborhood bicycle shop, Mr. Horton, played by Gordon Jump, then widely known as the bumbling station manager Arthur Carlson from WKRP in Cincinnati. Mr. Horton lures the boys to his apartment with video games, comic books, and food, and gradually escalates his behavior.
Run that by me again? Yeah, but...
The episode depicted a predatory adult gaining the trust of children through gifts and flattery, and it addressed child sexual abuse in a mainstream sitcom at a time when the subject was almost entirely absent from American television. It is, by any measure, a significant piece of television history, an episode that helped introduce a generation of parents and children to a warning they hadn't heard on primetime before. It is also deeply strange to watch. The subject demands gravity. The format, the sitcom structure, the canned laugh track playing over scenes that have no business being funny, keeps pulling in the other direction. Audiences in the studio laughed because the sound mix and staging told them to, even during scenes that had no comedic content.
You're talking to people that have been there for a long, long time. Well, hang in there, little big cheeks.
Jump's performance, using the same warm and fumbling mannerisms audiences associated with his lovable Arthur Carlson, gave the Predator character a veneer of familiarity that made it genuinely unsettling. The result has been analyzed and debated ever since. Whether the episode's reach justified its discomfort is a question that has never been fully resolved. What The Bicycle Man illustrated was the tension at the heart of the show's later seasons. The format was being asked to carry more than it had originally been designed for. A cozy Friday night family comedy about a charming kid in a rich man's house was not the ideal vehicle for confronting the darkest corners of childhood. But the show kept trying, which said something about both its ambitions and its limitations.
Go roller skating with you and Charlene tonight?
No.
Let me rephrase the question.
Nancy Reagan appeared in a 1983 episode to promote her Just Say No anti-drug campaign, sitting on the Drummond couch and talking to Arnold about the dangers of substance abuse. It was one of the most visible celebrity appearances in the show's run, and it indicated how far the series had traveled from its original premise as a simple culture clash comedy about a kid with a great catchphrase. Part 4. The Cracks Begin. Season 6 brought real structural change, and it came from an unexpected direction: Dana Plato's pregnancy. Plato had been struggling for some time before 1984. She had been drinking in ways that had drawn concern from producers as far back as season 5. At 18, she became pregnant by her boyfriend Lanny Lambert, a guitarist.
I have to be thin. You didn't see those girls I got friendly with in Paris, models and stuff.
And the two married before the birth of their son Tyler Edward Lambert on July 2nd, 1984. Conrad Bain later told People magazine that he believed the pregnancy was deliberate, that Plato had confided to him a desire to have someone who would be entirely hers. Whatever the circumstances, the producers decided her personal situation was incompatible with the show's image as wholesome family entertainment. Her character, Kimberly, was written out of the main storyline with the explanation that she had moved to Paris. Plato was paid more than $20,000 per episode at the time of her dismissal. She returned to the show in limited capacity during its final 2 seasons on ABC, with her last appearance in January 1986, a season 8 episode in which Kimberly's storyline addressed bulimia.
Any pistachio ice cream? How about strawberry? Fine. And then I've got to tell you something. Okay, I'll be right back.
In what was considered by some critics one of the series' strongest late performances from Plato. But by then, the damage to her career trajectory was done. The same season saw the departure of Dixie Carter, who had joined in season 7 as Maggie McKinney, Philip Drummond's new girlfriend and eventual wife. Carter, who would go on to considerable success in designing women, was replaced in season 8 on ABC by Marianne Mobley, who took over the role of Maggie. The recasting was handled without explanation to the audience, in the way such changes were often handled in that era of television. Meanwhile, Gary Coleman was aging out of the persona that had made the show famous.
What I have to say to Kimberly is extremely important. Would you please excuse us? Have you seen the view from the balcony?
Yes, I have.
It's better second time.
The boy who had arrived at 10 with the face of a 7-year-old could not remain frozen. By the show's final seasons, he was a young man in his mid-teens who no longer physically matched the character audiences had fallen in love with. The catchphrase didn't land the same way. The situations that had fit Arnold Jackson in 1979 were straining against who Coleman actually was. The show's producers kept writing for the earlier version of the character, and the gap between the fiction and the reality widened with every season. By the end of season 7, NBC had seen enough. The ratings had declined sharply across 2 seasons. In the spring of 1985, the network canceled Diff'rent Strokes. In a move that was unusual even by the standards of the era, ABC picked the show up for an 8th season.
And what is your problem, brother?
Well, I guess if I told Abraham, I could tell you.
And aired it on Friday nights alongside other struggling productions. The final season ranked 76th out of 106 shows in the Nielsen ratings. After 19 episodes, ABC canceled it as well. The final episode aired on March 7th, 1986. Part 5. What came after? The show was gone. What followed for its 3 young stars was reported, documented, and never forgotten. Gary Coleman's post-show life was defined almost immediately by the discovery of what had happened to his money. At the peak of his career in the early 1980s, he had been earning $70,000 per episode. The total across the show's run was estimated at around $18 million.
I put Abraham beside the hot tub.
You did that.
Sake, well, no, I don't.
His parents had structured their financial arrangement with their son in a way that named themselves as paid employees of his production company, drawing salaries throughout the show's run. When the trust fund was dissolved upon Coleman turning 18 in 1986, he found approximately $220,000 remaining. In 1989, Coleman filed a lawsuit against his adoptive parents and his former business manager, alleging fraud and misappropriation. He won a settlement in 1993 of $1.28 million, a fraction of what had been earned and significantly less than the $3.8 million he had sought. Coleman filed for bankruptcy in 1999. He spent years working as a security guard in Utah, supplementing a career that offered him almost nothing after Diff'rent strokes ended.
Kimberly, you be very careful with that star. It's an antique. It's been in our family for years.
Just like Daddy.
The role had absorbed his identity so completely that casting directors couldn't see past it. He made guest appearances when he could. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Simpsons, but the sustained career that should have followed a performance of that quality never materialized. He ran for governor of California in the 2003 recall election, finishing 8th in the popular vote with more than 12,000 ballots. He wrote op-eds about his situation. He gave interviews about the gap between what his career had promised and what it had delivered. He was also still managing the health consequences that had defined his life since infancy. His second kidney transplant came in 1984, while the show was still on the air.
They're knocking down our roots.
If our roots don't knock us down first.
Both transplants ultimately failed. For the final 25 years of his life, Coleman lived without functional kidneys, relying on regular dialysis. He married Shannon Price in 2007. The marriage was turbulent and ended in divorce in 2008, though Price remained named in his advanced health care directive. On May 28, 2010, Coleman fell at his home in Utah and sustained a fatal brain hemorrhage. He was 42 years old. Dana Plato's story is harder to tell and impossible to soften. After being written off the show in 1984, she struggled to rebuild any kind of career. The options available to a young woman who had been the teenage girl on a family sitcom were narrow, and she pursued the ones in front of her. She posed for Playboy in 1989.
You'll see, you'll have the best set of choppers in town.
She appeared in a series of low-budget direct-to-video productions. She also described losing a significant portion of her remaining money after signing a power of attorney to an accountant who, she later said, disappeared with most of what she had. In 1991, she walked into a Las Vegas video store with a pellet gun and demanded cash, a robbery that yielded $66 and led to her arrest and prosecution. She was placed on 5 years probation. The following year, she was arrested again, this time for forging a prescription for Valium. She served time. She attempted rehabilitation. She appeared on The Howard Stern Show in May 1999, insisting she had been sober for a decade while callers phoned in to say she didn't sound it.
What are you talking about? I'm not a kid. And Dad wouldn't mind if I have a drink now and then.
On May 8, 1999, while staying in Moore, Oklahoma, with her fiancé, Robert Menchaca, Plato took a combination of Valium and Lortab and did not wake up. She was 34 years old. A coroner's inquest ruled her death a suicide. Her son Tyler Lambert, who was 14 when she died, took his own life on May 6, 2010, 2 days before the 11th anniversary of his mother's death. He was 25. Todd Bridges survived, and surviving cost him everything he had. When the show ended in 1986, Bridges was a young man with no income, no clear career path, and an unprocessed history that, as he described in his 2008 memoir, Killing Willis, From Diff'rent Strokes to The Mean Streets to The Life I Always Wanted included being sexually abused by his publicist at age 12.
You mean you're the rabbit Arnold's been chasing in his dream?
That's right. And the oogies represent the danger he thinks I'll be in on my trip.
An assault his father had dismissed when Bridges tried to report it. He had started using cocaine socially in 1982, while the show was still on the air. He lost $1.5 million to embezzlers after the show ended and was assessed $800,000 in back taxes. By late 1988, with money gone and options exhausted, he had moved into a crack house in South Central Los Angeles and was dealing drugs to support his habit. In 1989, Bridges was arrested and charged with attempted murder for the shooting of a drug dealer during a cocaine binge. He spent 9 months in custody while awaiting trial. His defense was led by Johnny Cochran. He was acquitted of attempted murder and attempted voluntary manslaughter in November 1989.
I'm very sorry that this happened to you, Henry, and I can see to it that it doesn't happen again.
The jury deadlocked on the assault charge. In 1992, he was arrested again on methamphetamine and firearms charges. He entered a year-long rehabilitation program the following year and, by his own account, got clean and stayed clean. He became a Christian. He began speaking publicly about addiction and its causes, traveling to high schools and youth programs across the country. Conrad Bain lived to 89, dying on January 14, 2013. Charlotte Ray, whose Mrs. Garrett had launched The Facts of Life and a Decade of Separate Success, died on August 5, 2018 at 92 after a battle with bone cancer. Part 6, What the Show Left Behind. Diff'rent Strokes ran for 8 seasons and 189 episodes across 2 networks. It launched The Facts of Life, which ran for 9 seasons and made Charlotte Ray a household name in her own right. It introduced a catchphrase that has outlasted almost everything else from its era. It addressed subjects, child abuse, drug use, racism, eating disorders, that other family sitcoms of the period wouldn't go near. And it did so in a format that was never quite equipped to handle them with the weight they deserved. The show was ranked 76th in its final season. That number sits against the memory of a show that was once, at its peak, one of the 20 most watched programs on American television. The distance between those 2 positions is a measure of how far things had fallen and how quickly. What happened to its 3 young stars entered the popular consciousness as a cautionary story about the television industry's relationship with children.
Impeached and still treasurer.
Former impeached treasurer?
That's me. There wasn't any money in the treasury.
About what it asks of them, what it takes from them, and what protections it does not provide. The phrase, Diff'rent Strokes curse, became shorthand, not just in entertainment journalism, but in cultural commentary more broadly, a way of describing the particular devastation that can follow a childhood spent in the industrial machinery of network television. There have been other shows, before and since, that left their child performers in difficult positions. Diff'rent Strokes concentrated those outcomes in one place and then made them spectacularly public. The machinery worked beautifully for the years when it needed Gary Coleman to be Arnold Jackson. The same machinery had nothing to offer him after.
Disease you can get when a dog bites you.
I'm gonna go get Daddy.
What kind of disease is it, Willis?
Dog disease. People hardly ever get it.
It couldn't give him a career that matched what he had been. It couldn't protect his earnings. It couldn't prepare him for the person he would grow into when the cameras stopped rolling. The show's formula required him to stay small and sharp and quick-witted and 10 years old for as long as possible. He couldn't do that, and neither could anybody. Todd Bridges has spent decades since his recovery speaking to young people about addiction and the dangers it carries. He has talked publicly and specifically about the abuse he experienced as a child, about the way trauma and fame compounded each other, about the years it took him to understand that neither Hollywood nor anyone in it had been responsible for protecting him. He describes Conrad Bain, who visited him in prison and took him fishing and talked with him about life and what it was worth, as the closest thing to a genuine father figure the show ever gave him. He says he loves life now. He is the only one of the 3 child stars who is still alive to say so. 8 seasons, 2 networks, 1 kid who couldn't be replaced, and a story that didn't end when the credits did. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. There is a lot more where this came from.